You can begin this exercise by arranging your body in a way that it can sit or lie comfortably. Gently close your eyes and then proceed to take in a few deep breaths. And as you start to engage in this production, the only thing that really needs to take center stage right now are your own thoughts. After all, you have this space entirely to yourself. There's no audience watching how this script plays out in your mind. There are no critics judging what you should or shouldn't think. There's no pressure to perform for anyone or have to take on a certain personality or really do a whole lot for that matter. And while there may be people nearby, it really is just a one-person show where all you really need to do is sit back and unwind as you are now, so your mind can engage itself in something that can help take the pressure off, and any discomfort or lingering tension sitting within your muscles can slowly start to dissolve. And you may have heard the analogy before that the human mind is a lot like a stage, with so many different kinds of stories that can play out at any given time. Events that happened in the past, or could possibly happen in the future, certain characters that stand out, interesting plot twists, even stories that maybe have nothing to do with you. And it should be noted that in your mind's theater, you always get to be the director, which is a nice luxury to have, considering there are so many different places the mind can go. So with full understanding of the solo production this is, you can settle into a comfortable posture and begin to physically experience that freedom you get when you can just candidly be yourself and let your truest, most natural identity come out. Kind of like that realization that happens when you're sitting at home, the door closes, and you recognize that you now have the house to yourself, and there's no one else around, allowing you the immunity to basically be whoever you want and just make yourself at home, experiencing peace within yourself and peace with yourself. Because it can be so physically draining to have to deal with negative reviews from the outside world, and so exhausting when you feel like you have to play another character or put on some kind of performance just to keep the audience happy. And it can feel much more effortless to instead just be the character you feel most comfortable being in a role that feels more instinctive. And I'm not sure if you could consider what that might look like, but you could consider how some people liken the experience of guided imagery to watching a performance, or maybe even a play that you could picture yourself at now, inside a theater you've been to before, or could simply construct in your mind. And with the show about to begin, and the lights dimming low, the senseless chattering starting to quiet down, the spotlights come on, with your attention shifting towards the stage, slowly becoming more absorbed in how events unfold. And as the scenes change and the story goes on, you may begin to notice more and more components to the production. The various characters, the hidden meanings beneath certain events, the set design, architectural aspects of the theater. And as even more time passes and you sink even deeper into the experience, your focus can broaden to consider even more, like how many minutes you've been sitting for, how relaxed you've become during this time span, slowly starting to notice how so many different things have happened since the spotlight first came on. And it's interesting that even while watching a performance, the mind can still go to so many different places. And you may be slowly starting to realize how hard it is to pay attention to just one person or just one scene, which you may have experienced just in the time you have been doing this exercise. Because it's safe to say your mind has probably gone a few different places during this very experience. And that's perfectly fine. Whether it's put the spotlight on something unrelated or something important you're realizing, or if its focus has been on how your body has sunken into a more restful state during this time. Regardless, you can feel even more secure and relaxed with the additional reminder that it's still just you here. So you may continue to enjoy this time to yourself, remembering that you still don't need to act in any way that doesn't feel natural, or be anyone else for that matter. At the same time, it would be interesting to imagine for a moment what it might be like to be someone else in an adventurous way, like an actor might do, faced with the task of consciously trying to be another person, which really seems like a lot of work when you think about it, especially when you ponder the dynamic characters you have seen in your own life. You might picture a particular character you know personally that comes to mind, one whose personality could be on a TV show, and speculate for a moment what it's like to be them, and consider the compelling stories that made them the character they are today. You may also wonder what goes through their mind on a day-to-day basis. What types of things do they think about? Do you really know what they might be thinking? And unless they tell you, how could you possibly know exactly what they are thinking? Or exactly what anyone else is thinking, for that matter? And who would have thought that you can only think what thoughts someone else might be thinking? Although you can rethink what you thought about thoughts without outthinking yourself, if you are willing to unthink what you thought about what other people might be thinking. Or you could take a break from thinking and just relax and take the spotlight off the important work your mind is doing and place it onto your body and watch it sink deeper into a state of relaxation as your breathing continues to move at a much slower rhythm, as you experience that comfort and security within yourself, knowing more and more that this is a comfort you can take with you to many different places, to places where it may be most useful, like those certain situations where it sometimes feels like you're taking the stage, at work or out with others. And the next time you're on your way there, you can have the reminder readily available to you that there are so many other things going on in any given production, and so many different stories going on in the minds of so many different people, that the likelihood that others are focused on you is much, much lower than you think. And simultaneously, the amount of different things that others can be thinking about might get bigger and bigger, while the likelihood that they are thinking negatively about you can become smaller and smaller, as you can easily remind yourself that maybe you're not the star of the show, which makes so much sense considering the different characters within your stories and the different stories within these characters. And as the imaginary spotlight begins to move away from you, you can begin to experience that relief that maybe you can act out a more natural character, knowing that the audience members have so much else to focus on. So before you draw this experience to an end, you can take a minute to let these new understandings and reassurances sink in. And when you feel ready, you can turn the lights back on, open your eyes, and bring this production to a close.